Hello, everybody, and welcome to another Alex McCarthy's Wrestling Daily right here on Wrestle2. As you can see, it is a Monday. We are taking our usual slot after a major pay-per-view, and I'm being flanked by the Kid Whiz Kid himself. The Kid Whiz Kid, man, that's a double. Louis Dangoor of WrestleTalk. How are you doing, my friend?
Yeah, we were just saying before we started, both of our body clocks are a little bit skew with at the moment with a pay-per-view, and that is to be expected. But no, it was as we'll get on to talking about, it was a decent night. I think from what I've seen and from what you told me, you might have thought of it slightly more fondly than I did. But yeah, I did think it was a good night of wrestling. So I'm looking forward to chatting with everyone today and chatting with you on the show.
Yeah, I rated Survivor Series very highly. I thought, we'll get into it a bit deeper, but as far as the tag, the women's match and Roman and Drew, amazing. I thought probably the main problems came with the actual Survivor Series matches.
Yeah.
But I digress. So, there's a lot to get into. Of course, we welcome all of your Ultra Chats. You know the deal, guys. You can see at the bottom of the screen. Send in your messages and questions at WrestleTalk.com/Wrestle2. Once you do that, the good mods that you will find in the chat, which we love, on the right-hand side, they will tell us what you have said. We will read it out on screen, whatever the amount. So please do make sure you hit us with your Ultra Chats. It's my favorite part of the show. Be good eggs. We've got a lot to dive into, of course. This is the first WrestleTalk of the week. It will be 5 episodes this week. Tomorrow, Louis will be back again, bringing you some of the news and the fallout from Raw, no doubt. SB3 is back with his great debates on Wednesday. And then you got Steph Chase, the draw, on Thursdays, bringing in her.
Go on. I'll let you finish.
You haven't now.
Okay. So I was going to say, right. So we're going to see you 5 times a week on Wrestling Daily. But we're going to see you somewhere else on Wednesday night after Wrestling Daily. Me and you, we are on Quizzlemania 23 this week. WrestleTalk implodes. So it is team podcasts, Luke and Denise. The news team, which is Ollie and Pete. The website team, which is Andy and Tempest. And then Wrestling Daily with you and me. And I think we're going to bring it home on Wednesday, immediately after Wrestling Daily. We're going to go straight, you and SB3, we're going to go straight into Quizzlemania and bring it home.
I'm going to miss this whole, I'm just going to have to literally come from here to Quizzlemania. I'm just going to have to literally jump straight in. There might be, I don't know, we might make it like a 5-minute adjustment or something, but it'll be roughly the same time, guys, on Wednesday. And then, as I say, Thursday, Steph Chase, the draw herself, the hot take queen, she will be here with me. And then on Friday, Louis comes back to round off the week. So every single one of those, apart from tonight, will be 8 p.m. start. So, Lou, let's talk about Survivor Series. Let's get into the nitty-gritty of the show. I think we should talk about first is the Survivor Series matchups. Now, the men and the women, Raw came out on top on both occasions, and that would prove to be, Raw technically, if you include the Miz's Battle Royale win on the pre-show, which I'm sure they do, came out 4-3 victors on the night.
But they didn't track that throughout the night. They didn't tell us anything. It was like it didn't matter, which, fair enough. At least they didn't try and kid us that it meant anything. At least they're just like, these are just matches that are happening. It wasn't for anything or anything like that. So, yeah, but who cares who won?
I think, when we start getting into these matches, let's start with the men, because Raw would clean sweep SmackDown. That is the headline here. SmackDown were blown through. Seth Rollins sacrificed himself. More on that. And of course, Jey Uso would end up being the final participant for SmackDown, who gave up a bit of a fight before ultimately succumbing to the powers that be. Raw was a significantly bigger team besides Baron Corbin. So I guess where to start, Lou, for me, I want to get your thoughts on why Raw clean swept SmackDown and what the narratives are moving forward.
So I've seen some people be like, oh, it's because they were thrown off by Seth Rollins sacrificing himself, which in the story isn't an awful story. But I mean, there are probably better ways to sacrifice yourself, like walking away instead of just going, I'd like to voluntarily be kicked in the head by a notoriously hard striker. But okay. And then it just all sort of fell apart. Otis looked good. Otis had some cool power spots. He probably looked the best he has in months. Kevin Owens, not really. Baron Corbin, not really. And Jey Uso did some great work. And there was a post-match segment with him and Roman Reigns later on in the night, which was fantastic as well. I mean, it was kind of telegraphed, I guess. We should have all seen this coming. Like, oh, Team Raw don't get on during like the build-up, but they obviously get on fine by the time the show comes around. The team was bigger, as you said. It was kind of expected. So once 1 or 2 went, I was like, okay, could this be a clean sweep? I'm happy it was Keith Lee, because that sort of splash basically caught into the fire, into basically the fireman's carry and then into the Spirit Bomb was really cool. So that's exciting, I guess, for him. And there could be some exciting feuds coming out of it with I guess, Sheamus potentially lining up with Drew. He was put over quite strong in the match, made it feel like a big deal. You could have AJ in that mix as well. Any of these guys could really say that they've got a claim for the title now, which is quite an interesting prospect. Maybe have a 5-way tonight or something, or a series of matches ahead of potentially something with Drew at TLC. But yeah, I wasn't overly surprised looking at the size of the team and the opposition and what sort of how the opposition have been handled for Team SmackDown. I wasn't overly surprised by this.
Am I right in thinking that every member of Raw eliminated someone?
I don't know off the top of my head, but an interesting fact: 8 of the 10 people in that match lost the week of the show. Which is just makes no why and the people they lost to, like Retribution, they weren't even on the show. Just didn't make much sense. But I would actually have to check that. But you could be right.
I think I am. I think Sheamus put Rollins to bed. Styles put someone away with a phenomenal forearm. Riddle definitely put someone away with
Yeah, you're right. So Sheamus put Seth away. AJ put Owens away. Riddle put Corbin away, which is actually a nice mirroring of Royal Rumble, because Riddle eliminated him. And I think actually from Survivor Series last year as well. I think.
Maybe.
Could have been. And Keith Lee obviously eliminated Jey Uso right at the end. So yeah, you're right. That's actually quite interesting.
I think that's an interesting story being told there. You know, all as valuable as each other and all of that stuff. So I think you're right. Sheamus breaks off and goes with McIntyre. Strowman and Keith Lee still have issues to be resolved, which leaves us with Riddle and AJ. And I don't know if there's going to be like a fun tag team or they're going to have a feud. Like, who knows the direction they're going there. But for SmackDown, really, the story was that Jey Uso couldn't lead the team in Roman's eyes, right? And, of course, Seth, you know, the two things here. Kevin Owens, I really, really enjoyed how he attacked Matt Riddle's naked feet. That should be something you'd assume that everyone in every match against Riddle would do. But Kevin Owens actually did it.
Did you see what he did, though? When he headbutted the foot.
Good. Get the foot.
Effectively kicked himself in the head.
Good. That'll hurt. That'll get him. And then obviously, so the main thing, right, is Seth Rollins laying down. Presumably, he's going to be taking the time off now. Becky Lynch is due in the next couple of weeks, and that will probably be him for the rest of the year. Or, you know, he might return at Rumble, perhaps before that. So the story here is that Seth Rollins does not like Matt Riddle. From anyone that I've ever spoke to, that is indeed a shoot. The heat is extremely real. Seth does not like him. It goes back to the indie days and what he knows of Matt Riddle through Seth Rollins' Black and Brave Wrestling Academy. He has a lot of people that have either come across Riddle or know him, and he doesn't like what he hears. Then there's the Riddle's wife making the comments about Becky Lynch needing to do more squats and basically just being derogatory about her body on Instagram. It's just a whole combination which, you know, is stirring the pot even before we get to the real life accusations going on against Matt Riddle right now. So Seth Rollins doesn't like him. I don't know if anyone in the comments or watching this right now has seen what happened when Matt Riddle was actually in the corner of Team SmackDown. Seth Rollins won't actually look at him. That's how bad it is. He literally.
I don't know. I don't know about that.
Wait, Sean actually posted a screenshot about it. It's I think it's pretty damning. But I mean, he said he would never work with him. This was only last month. He said that at the draft, and then here we are. I think all of maybe 6 weeks later, and he gets out of the match first. Now, is it directly linked? Quite possibly. There's every reason to believe that it is, but at the same time, if Rollins is going to get himself to go away for a while and he's going to do something with the Messiah character, it's not bad, right? It's kind of a cool way to do that. It's something the Messiah would do because, and Owens even said this when Rollins got eliminated. He was, it has to be about you. You have to do something, right? So it all kind of makes sense. But I could also imagine that Seth would have pitched that, or they would have put that together to make sure that he didn't have to cross paths with Riddle. But then it's weird because you'd think, why put yourself in that situation in the first place? If WWE know that, it seems like a long way to go around the houses to then just say, to then for him to avoid him when they could have just not booked it, or Seth could have just said in the first place, no, I don't want to do it. But what Seth Rollins ended up doing was even more emphatic. So everyone was talking about it afterwards. And, I haven't had any confirmation that is exactly what it was meant, but I certainly do have confirmation that there is big problems between Rollins and Riddle.
Yeah, I have as well, but I would be surprised if there was anything. If that was anything, I think it's more like Seth just doing it to be Seth, potentially into his gimmick. He could have been doing that for other people as well. I just think people weren't looking out for it potentially. I just think that maybe that's a bit of a stretch. It could well be, and I could be off the mark. But I think that there are many ways of having Seth and it's a 10-person match, so there's ways of having Seth interact with the 4 other people on Team Raw and not have to get in the ring with Riddle if they wanted to do it that way. I think this was more just character development for Seth to write him off TV. Potentially we could get a 4-on-1 handicap deal on SmackDown if they want to do that. I guess basically everyone beats down on Seth a bit. Maybe, I don't know. I've seen that speculated, but yeah, I don't know about in terms of whether that's a legit heat thing or not. But I mean, it's definitely an option, not an option, a viable explanation.
Yeah, I mean, like we said, it's a very real situation, as we say, with Rollins and Riddle. But if that played into the factor of the booking last night, it's only speculative. So who knows? But it certainly was an interesting choice from Seth. There is absolutely no question about that. Moving on to the women, my main issue, and me and Will, my TalkSport co-host, actually kind of disagreed on this. But for me, I didn't like the finish. I kind of liked it, what it meant for Belair, because she looked really strong on the home straight, and Liv Morgan before that, and Peyton Royce was kind of had her moment against Bayley. So there was a lot of good stuff where different people were made. But I think for Belair and that count out, I always think count outs they just kind of suck. No, they don't really help anyone. And, both of them would have been able to hear the ref. So it's kind of you get back in the ring, you both know that. And Belair would have known she's the last as well. So it's just kind of I was totally cool with Lana being the sole survivor. I just don't think the way they did it did much for her. That's my problem. Her character is meant to be proving everyone wrong. And yet she's in there celebrating a default victory like it was the greatest thing ever. And it's you wouldn't be doing that if you were that, dead set on proving everyone wrong. I just felt like it was the right decision done wrong.
Yeah, the execution was poor. I mean, in fairness, this made complete sense. There is no one that can say this didn't make sense, because in the storyline, this made perfect sense.
And it's a good match. The match was entertaining in itself.
Yeah, the match contained some good bits. I mean, Natalya kicked Peyton Royce in the tit, which is always fun to see. But yeah, it made sense in the storyline. They were underestimating Lana, but Lana celebrating the end. It was I proved you wrong. But it's no, because you didn't contribute to the win. So it's not like you've proved anything yet. I think this is just another feather in the story. I mean, based on what's been happening with them, if we don't get a tables match at TLC between them, I'll be pretty surprised. Like based on the story, it kind of makes the most sense.
Yeah.
And that's where you have Lana put her through the table. Done. I mean, Dave Meltzer has reported that this match, again, like kind of, we've joked before, but kind of an obvious report. This finish was done to protect Belair, Jackson Baszler, which, I mean, anyone could have seen.
Yeah.
But yeah, and it did do that to a certain extent. Like I came away thinking, all right, Belair looks good. She had some good moments. Jackson, her no selling got a bit much for me in this match. There are aspects where I'm like, all right, I get the like, oh look, you are physically stronger and bigger than any other woman in this match. There's no doubt about that. But it looked a little bit just like I think she hit. So the Right Squad hit their finish on Jax, and Jax just no-sold it and just tagged out. And I was like, what are you doing? So that didn't really work for me. And there were aspects. This was the weakest match on the card, for sure. I think that some of the stuff was sloppy. I wasn't a massive fan of it. The finish didn't really work. It made sense, but it was executed very poorly. And but I think in terms of looking at the two matches overall, SmackDown have just been made to look like chumps again. Two consecutive one-on-one matches, and they've just 5-on-5 matches, and they've just been made to look like idiots. So who knows?
That's just your.
No, but it was just like it was this match. I didn't really care. Like as bad as that sound, and unfortunately, this match did highlight, especially when Bayley went out early. You don't have Bayley in the match, Sasha in the match, Asuka in the match, Charlotte in the match, Ronda. It felt like Becky. It felt like it was missing a lot of the very good workers in that match. Like Liv Morgan's worked a lot recently. Ruby Riot's great. Natalia's a very solid hand. Lacey, I think, is great. She has some really innovative offense. Shayna Baszler's great. Bianca Belair's great. But it felt like it was lacking something, lacking a big name, like a Becky Lynch or an Asuka or a Sasha Banks. It felt like it was missing something to sort of really grip me.
Nah, not for me. I know what you mean. It's obviously, you would prefer it, right? I get that, but I mean, for me, it's not. I can enjoy watching the rest of those women wrestle. Bianca Belair. I said going into it, really, the Lana storyline was kind of the obvious play, but the main hope should have been Bianca Belair being spotlighted. I felt the same for Keith Lee in the men's match, and to a degree, WWE did it on both, but I just don't think they did it well enough. The
execution was poor.
That was my problem. Both of them should have been put over stronger. But there you have it. Who knows? I mean, Raw come out on top on both. I'm not a huge Nia Jax fan, full stop. I'm waiting for the inevitable, I assume, Shayna Baszler face turn, I presume. And also when Charlotte Flair returns, she will undoubtedly target Nia Jax at some stage as well, due to being put out from injury. So I don't like the no-selling Jax stuff, but at the same time, it's not something I'm going to hate. It's not something I'm going to hate too much, because at the end of the day, she is huge compared to the other women. Legit. If we're talking about keeping it real and realistic, come on now, she's going to be a very hard mountain to move. Yeah. Moving on to the other match, we're saying SmackDown got dealt a bad hand here, but Sasha Banks and Roman Reigns, probably the two biggest stars in the company, if we're talking numbers, both came out on top in their matches, and I think it was the right decision on both accounts, Lou.
Yeah, it really was. But I mean, I'll talk about the Sasha and Asuka one first, because there was a point during the Roman match and Drew match where I was like, I wouldn't actually mind if Drew won. It was a great match on that account. But Sasha and Asuka had a great match. I mean, those two, I don't want to jinx it, but I think they struggled to have a bad match. The chemistry's off the charts between those two. They are incredible in the ring together. Some great submission sequences and sort of hold sequences with the ankle lock. It was just really great. These two can put on a great match. It was probably what Asuka needed, a big pay-per-view match. I think Asuka could have probably done with the win more. Just to give her something like a bit of a shot in the arm. All right, we you kind of plodding along, because her last big win was against Sasha Banks in, like, I know you can count like the Mickie James stuff they've done and the Zelina Vega. Like it's there, but it's not like a big win.
But why does she need to beat Sasha again?
She doesn't, but she needs a big win, and Sasha was just her opponent on the night.
Sasha needed this more, is my argument.
I mean, Sasha won a women's Hell in a Cell match like 4 weeks ago. She beat Bayley like two or 3 weeks ago on SmackDown. She's felt like she's had big wins recently, but it hasn't felt like that for Asuka, if that makes sense. Like, it's felt like, all right, Sasha Banks. I would be more
You've got
interested.
to say, the thing is with Banks, right, is as champion, historically, since she's been on the main roster, she's had bad starts and bad runs and the short runs, right?
I will say it's nice. It's nice to see her winning as champion.
It's about time that she got that run and got off to a stable start. So for me, it was more important for Banks as a launch pad. And for anyone who doesn't want to hear this, she is a bigger star than Asuka, like in terms of just full presence and whatnot. So, if you're going to concentrate on giving one of the biggest platform, give it to Banks. Asuka's had the title for a long time now. I don't think the way she lost either was going to hurt her too much. Do you know what I mean? It was just the roll up. It's one of those things. Like, they had a really competitive match. One of them got the better of them. That's kind of how it goes. So it wasn't like she was buried in any kind of way or dominated.
No, it wasn't buried.
Asuka hasn't had any big wins because she hasn't really had any big challenges. That's it's not particularly her fault.
Not her fault at all. Like, when I'm saying this, it's not like I'm saying, Asuka's not delivered when she's been given the opportunity. She just hasn't been given the opportunities. So I think it would have been nice to see her.
She's had a very established reign, is my argument here, whereas Banks is just getting off the ground with the first true reign of 6, by the way, that is actually started off strong, and she's been booked like the star that she is. So just for me, on this occasion, it served Banks better to be the winner than it would Asuka.
I do agree with that. I think that but they're both like. I mean, that's a very minor nitpick. I probably would have said if Asuka won, I probably would have been like, "Hey, Sasha Banks could have done with the win as well." It's just one of those things. But the match was really good. And then moving over to the Drew and Randy match, Drew and Roman, just force of habit. When I hear pay-per-view and Drew McIntyre. But this was fantastic. Like, everything, it felt like a big match. It was probably the biggest match WWE could book out of 2 active wrestlers, and it felt that way, like a big fight feel. It started slow and then turned into like a hard hitting one with like an announce table like spot where firstly it didn't break and then it did, and then the spear through the announce table. And then the ref bump, which was actually one of the early times that a ref bump has looked believable and really good. Like, the timing was there and the placement was there from both. That looked really good. This match was fantastic. Like, match of the year contender for me very easily. I felt like a big deal, and I didn't feel that Drew lost anything. It was like, all right, without the low blow and the interference from Jay, could have been a different result. And I think that's an interesting story to take potentially within the next couple of years, like later on down the line. Can Drew beat Roman, or has Roman just got Drew's number? And then we can play that out and have Drew's eventual win. But yeah, it was really good. But in this match, we were on the stream, Ollie, Pete, and I, and we were like, you know what? If Drew wins, let's see it. Like, it could be cool. But yeah, it was a very good match, and it capped off a decent night of in-ring wrestling. I think that there were the singles matches were all really good for what they were.
So for me, I don't think there's anything stopping the Roman Reigns Express anytime soon, and rightly so. You want to, he's the hottest heel of the company, the biggest act. You give him the biggest platform and push, and that's exactly what they've done. But Drew was made to look super strong. He had 3 spears, 1 through the barricade, a Samoan drop through the table. It took Jey Uso getting involved 2 at the finish to then finally put him to bed. He didn't tap. He passed out, the classic way that WWE get around that. So, I mean, I feel like Drew looked as strong as he could. And those 2, for me, the biggest babyface, biggest heel in the company. That's what you've got right now. And for WWE to find that, and for them to have the amazing chemistry that they have, it leads me to believe that there's more money in this down the road. You could get it at WrestleMania. Maybe not this one, but there is a WrestleMania for them down the road. And, man, I just felt they delivered. And that is a banging main event, that you hope for in your 2 biggest acts in the company. So, I mean, when I look at match of the year contender. Yeah, for sure. If you look at the main events WWE have put on this year, that's as good as any of them, you could argue. And yeah, I think that they have every right to explore that to the fullest, because that is a real rivalry that WWE have stumbled upon that could make them a lot of money if it keeps developing the way it is, because both of them are in a totally different stratosphere. Just got a comment.
I mean, I was just going to say, what a difference 18 months makes with the chemistry between those two. A bit of good booking and a subversion of heel and face, and what a difference 18 months can make.
Dale Holland says, "Hey Alex, amazing night on TalkSport. Thank you very much, my man. Love your interview with the Bucks. It was good to hear about their plans in the UK." And that I say that to say this, because there was also a message from resident good egg CM Chris. Alex, how can I hear you on Bucks interview? I didn't realize you had an interview with them. Well, let me tell you, my Talk Wrestling show that was on tonight, it had my clip with the Undertaker, it had my interview with Paul Heyman, it had an interview with the Young Bucks, and we had Ken Shamrock on live. That is as stacked as you could imagine a radio show could be, and it was awesome. The Young Bucks and I went about 30 minutes, and yeah, if you want to catch that, I implore you to go on the TalkSport app and the catch-up option to catch up with that, or the video of it will be on Inside the Ropes in the coming days, Wednesday, I think. So don't quote me on it, but it's going to be in the next couple of days, and I'll write it up for TalkSport too. But it was a good interview, so yeah, I think you should definitely check it out. Talk Wrestling had a lot going on tonight.
Yeah, we'll get on to obviously talking about potentially some of the little nuggets, pardon the pun, from that after we talk about this show. Because I mean, what did you think of the Sami Zayn and Bobby Lashley match? Because I've heard mixed responses from this one.
I thought it did what it had to do. You know what I mean? It was fine. Sammy did his character work. Bobby and the Hurt Business remained strong. Sammy tried to weasel his way out of the match, get disqualified. Didn't let it happen. Bobby Lashley's invincible finish puts him to bed. Thanks very much. Let's go home. It wasn't much else to be done there. Could have given. I just didn't see any other outcome. I didn't see Sammy getting a screwy win. I don't see them having Lashley lose anytime soon. So it is what it is, man. It was fine. I didn't hate it. It just wasn't like particularly noteworthy either.
Did the job is what I'd say. Like it did what it said on the tin. Was nothing special. Yeah, but what was Street Profits and New Day, man?
Awesome, absolutely awesome.
We got 32 minutes left. I could talk about this match for 32 minutes.
Well, we talk about, and I think AEW get a lot of credit for being, the tag team connoisseurs and the home of the best teams in the world. But let me tell you, that match, I hate to be that guy, but like it would have got a lot more love if it was in like an AEW or New Japan or something like that, because I think WWE needs to get credit where it's due. That was one of the best tag matches of the year, certainly in WWE. The energy and the action throughout was just relentless, man. It was so entertaining. The story woven in with Dawkins and Ford having the fire to usurp, like the old guard that the New Day represent, and the kind of the forefathers almost of the division right now. I thought it was amazingly well done. I really did. And I love the post-match stuff too, with the respect and putting them over. I just thought it was a perfect clash of almost generations and that style and the charisma. I honestly can't say enough good things for that. And it just makes you mad that WWE don't do more for their tag team division when you see the talent that still exists in there.
I mean, in fairness, we've had sort of, I know, this is no excuse, but last month or so, we've had 3 great New Day matches, 2 with the Hurt Business and 1 again with Street Profits. I mean, I'm not saying this is WWE caring about their tag division, but hopefully it steps in the right direction. And I mean, the story I loved for this match was when they went for the midnight hour and Montez Ford kicked out a 2 like straight away. Like it wasn't like a near 4, like a 2.5. It was like a 2. And then them, like commentary, and to their credit, they played this up nicely. They were like, oh, this is a match where, and a move where if Big E's in there, that it has more impact with the midnight hour with Big E. So Kofi and Xavier Woods are having to come to terms with the fact that Big E's not there, having to change up their offense, change up how they do things. And that might take some time to get used to, because normally when we have seen New Day tag matches, it's been with Kofi and Big E, or Big E and Xavier Woods. So it's not often been Kofi and Woods. So that story of them taking time to get used to each other, I guess, is a really good one. And I think on this one, Street Profits definitely needed the win. New Day had a big win last week. They're doing some good stuff with the Hurt Business that I think will continue. And yeah, we've got hopefully now Street Profits going into some feuds with Sheamus and not Sheamus and Cesaro. I wish Shinsuke Nakamura and Cesaro and Dolph Ziggler and Robert Roode. Is that the other team?
And Sami Zayn and Baron Corbin. They're a team now. They're a team.
Don't even. I literally hope Sami drops the title and we get KO and Sami Zayn in a tag team and just go create some magic.
Also, the Usos are going to be back in the new year, so don't have to wait for long for that to happen again. And they're going to be heel as they are at their best, like they were in 2016. Let's before we talk about Undertaker in depth, let's get to this Ultra Chats we've got waiting in the chamber. So first of all, it is Matthew McCoskey. He's up there in the good eggs. How you doing, my friend? He's dropped us 2 chats here. I don't care what anyone says. That main event effing ruled. 3 great matches happened. I give Roman and Drew the match of the night, but I can't seem to decide which was better between the tag and the women's champion match. I have something for you guys to discuss. And he moves on to his second Ultra Chat. Looking at the 4 world title holders in WWE, NXT, and AEW, my order is clearly Roman at the top. Unfortunately, Balor at the bottom. Moxley has had a great title reign, but I believe Drew's reign is superior to Moxley. I can't wait to hear what you have to say. That's very interesting. I know if SB3 was here, he'd be pulling his hair out at Jon Moxley being below Drew McIntyre. But I actually agree that would probably be my order as well. I don't. Yes, that's hard. That's really hard because I just having Jon Moxley in third feels dirty, like because he's done a great job. But yeah, I think when you actually break it down, I think Drew McIntyre in terms of pay-per-views in 2020, there are few that have delivered on pay-per-view at the level he has throughout the entire year. Very few. Yeah. And you take into account his last 7 to 10 days, amazing work. Roman is, you can make the case that it depends what your criteria is, right? But he's been away for a bit. But since he's been back, he's been heads and shoulders above everyone else, and he's the most interesting character in the business right now for me. But Balor, him being fourth, it's not really his fault. He won it. He had a great match with Kyle O'Reilly.
I was gonna say, he probably had the best match of since Moxie won the title because he was the first. I guess you can count Drew because he kind of dropped it for 3 weeks. So since the start of Drew's title reign, Balor's probably had the best title match out of them.
What, better than McIntyre and Roman on Sunday?
No, but that's not a title match. If we're talking title reigns.
Yeah, all right.
In terms of title match, listen, the Roman stuff is great, but in terms of in-ring action, in terms of moves, it's not great. In terms of storytelling, it's head and shoulders above everything. But in terms of actual in-ring action, Kyle O'Reilly and Finn Balor was probably the top. But I mean, he's obviously been hampered massively by the fact that his first reign and he's injured. But yeah, I think that it's. I do agree. It's sort of Roman clearly at the top, Balor unfortunately clearly at the bottom, not through any fault of his own. I'd probably go for McIntyre over Moxley, but it is very close.
I can't. There's a nagging feeling inside that I don't like having Moxley third because I do think he's done a tremendous job in 2020 carrying that belt. It's same as McIntyre in a rubbish time, right? But I actually think back to Moxley and the Brody Lee match was a banger of a main event. Really violent. Eddie Kingston, banger of a main event. Really violent. Now let's see what he brings to the table with Omega on TV. And that might change our perceptions. But, I mean, at the moment, I will agree. That would be my 4. But let the record state that I'm a Jon Moxley fan and I feel terrible for having him in that spot. Let's move on to Matty the Hot Scott. Hey, guys. Hope you weren't too tired today. I know I was. Oh, Matty, you need to be sitting around thinking of impressions for us to come up with. Louis is itching to give an impression. I can see it. Look at his face. Look at it. No. His tash just blossoming, just gagging to give out some world-class impressions. let's move on to the final Ultra Chat that we have in there. And it is my guy, Bo Hill. How you doing, my friend? Eggs Benedict, I believe, as you prefer to be addressed. Where is it? Where is the eggometer? Where is it?
It's been, listen, you can't blame us. It's been a busy few days with Survivor Series. It's getting there. It's getting there.
Let the record show once again that we do abide by the eggometer. It's just not actually here yet. So Bo Hill has said, number one, what is WWE's obsession with the double DQ spot in the Survivor Series matches? 2, WWE's treatment of John Morrison is criminal. Put him in the final 2 with Miz. Would have at least been able to have a story coming out of what was otherwise pointless. I don't know if it was pointless. I agree with what Louis said earlier in terms of the spotlight on Chad Gable and Dominic. I liked it.
Did I say that?
I believe you did. Did you not? Am I thinking of my other show? Either way, I liked Dominic and Chad Gable. I'm saying that.
To be fair, that is an opinion I have and one I do agree with. So I should have just.
And why have you? Yeah, okay, right. Anyway,
because I just don't think I said it.
I'll have to go back, but my memory's not great. Listen, I have a lot of shows on my plate. All right, bear with me. So I like that much coming out of it, but I do agree there should be so much more done with John. I have the greatest abs in the world, Morrison, chiseled from goddamn stone. The thing I like about John Morrison is and this is a little bit of a hot take coming on, is very similar to the reason I love RVD. When you watch their matches, there is no one else that has their matches. They wrestle a very specific style that no one else really does. And I just find it so entertaining to watch because it's energetic and innovative and different, unorthodox in some ways. I love that. John Morrison is one of my favorite wrestlers to watch. When he first returned and he had the singles with like Big E and a couple of others, I was really into it. And I think, but now Miz is the story. He's kind of just along for the ride at the moment. And, you can say what you like about that, but I do think there are more things for John Morrison. Do I have faith WWE will give him those things? Maybe not. But I hope that there is more for him because the talent is fantastic. And I do love watching him work. So let's hope so. I'm putting him in that bracket of, I'm not saying like my greatest ever, but along my favorite. Jomo is 1000% in there with RVD. In terms of the double DQ, Lou, do you want to take WWE's obsessions?
I mean, it's a thing where you book yourself into a corner. You don't want to have people lose, so you do that. Like, simple. It's not, but it's probably the best way to do it.
It's like WWE etiquette at this point. This is what they do.
It is. In terms of the Miz and Morrison thing, like, I'm happy it wasn't those two in the end because we don't need another tag team teasing a split. Like, we're so short of tag teams. It's probably the last time we've seen them because we've seen it so often. It's lost its value. But I'm kind of distracted because I've just had a very horrible thought in my head.
Wow. Okay.
Lana's going to win the Royal Rumble.
I mean, I don't think she is, but okay.
Hang on. And what's going to happen? What's going to happen is before she even comes out, the last two people are going to eliminate each other, and she's just going to win it by default.
Oh, what you mean? Like she's going to be on her way to the ring, and they're going to like double clothesline each other and over the top rope. Yeah, maybe.
You could see it, couldn't you?
Oh, I don't know if WWE could even be that. I mean, I'm not going to tempt fate, but
are you telling me it's not something that they've probably considered?
I mean, I wouldn't put anything past them, to be honest.
It was the smile that was like, that's something that's not out of the realms of possibility.
It dawns on you. Let's move forward here. And remember, guys, I absolutely love the Ultra Chats. Please do get them into us. 20 minutes left on this show tonight if you want Lou and I to debate some more topics. Lou, let's talk Undertaker, man. I know, you obviously have kind of caught the tail end of his career and probably caught up on the rest. For me, I'm a 32-year-old man. He's had a 30-year career. He has literally been like my lifetime in wrestling. The Undertaker has been a staple. For his entire career, he's been pretty much at the top of the card, a main eventer. It's pretty unprecedented. Probably won't happen again. If we're going to talk about, we'll talk about what I think about the Undertaker's career shortly. But let's start with how they sent him off last night. I thought the way they got all of the legends out, I was kind of like cool with it. I was like, this is cool, you know, especially like everyone's in usual gear and then Kane comes out full get up. I thought that was great. But then I thought they were going to like at least, I don't know, like pay their respects or like celebrate the Undertaker. And I get why they didn't when you see what transpired, because it wouldn't have been the same, but a bit weird to wheel them out, was it not?
Especially in the current climate with people of that age. Like, did Ric Flair really need to come down to the Amway Center, mix with all those people?
It's a payday, brother.
And I guess they probably had like a lot of stuff backstage. Like, I mean, regardless of the stuff on screen, like they're always friends. They probably wanted to be with him backstage for his retirement. I presume it was incredibly emotional backstage after that. So yeah, I think that they definitely wanted both things. They wanted that, like, oh, him and his pals in the ring together, but they also wanted him, like, or like his legends, like in the ring. But they also wanted just him to do his own thing. Like, I know he didn't mix with them.
Couldn't they have been at like the top of the stage when he was doing his thing?
No, I'm happy they didn't. I'm happy it was literally just Undertaker's exit, like stand on top of the ramp like that, and he just walks off. Like, I wouldn't have had anyone there. I would have had, basically what I would have done was had throughout the show, like spread it out, like have like talking head segments, like throughout the show, have like Ric Flair there and have like people talking about their moments with him. So you get those legend cameos in. You don't have to bring them all out. And then you could just have Taker do it. Like, Vince introducing him was the right thing to do. Like 100% the right thing to do, having Vince as the one to introduce him.
Yeah.
But I think the way they did it, just Taker was the best thing. It was weird, man. It was really weird to see. But and I think he's done. I know you and I have been more skeptical than anyone of this Undertaker retirement. But after seeing that last night, I'm like, they can't come back. Like, they can't come back from this.
I'm not sure that he has another match, to be honest. I'm really not. I do think he's very comfortable with where he is now. I think he'll be involved in WWE in some, you know, he's talked about being a coach, or they might find an on-screen thing for him somehow, even though, like, GM Undertaker is weird to think of, but could be something where he's involved. He might even be a manager. I don't know. But when you look at, you know, when the only reason to say about the top of the stage is because I'm just trying to make sense of having them there full stop. What they did with them, it was almost like a totally different segment. You know what I mean? Like, I know that, like you said, there would have been stuff backstage, but to me, like, the Undertaker Paul Bearer bit was amazing. That like stopped me in my tracks when I'm watching it. And I've never really been the biggest hologram guy. You know what I mean? Like when you see them and people are, oh, cool, 2-pack. Or I was a bit like, But I mean, watching the way they did it and Undertaker kind of like paying homage to him, I thought was perfect. They honestly couldn't have done it better. I loved it. And I just felt like the whole thing with the legends was just a bit weird, how they didn't really make it a part of it. It was almost a separate thing. Emotional Vince McMahon introducing Undertaker was definitely the call. And I just,
Vince doesn't look good.
I mean, 75 to be fair.
It was a bit like, he looked like a waxwork from Madame Tussauds. But yeah, did you tear up?
No. Like I said, I was maybe choked is the better word. When Paul Bearer came on screen, like I said, it kind of like stopped me dead in my tracks. You know, when like you're sitting there covering an event and sometimes you type in head down, head up, like head down, head up, and then you kind of miss some things, Twitter, blah, blah. When Paul Bearer came on, I was like because I'd wanted it. I'd wanted them to pay homage to him somehow. And now that I think about it, it's probably the best way they could have done it. I
mean, there's no other way they could have, to be honest. Like, it was perfect. And I normally hate that AR crap, but this was perfect. Like, the way they did it, the hologram, it was like a lovely touch. And listen, it's obviously, it's not like Paul Bearer and Undertaker. It's probably like the people behind the characters that are close friends. Like, I'm sure when the Undertaker and he's seeing all of his friends backstage, like the Godfather, like he probably wants the likes of Paul Bearer and Yokozuna to be there with him. So being able to pay homage to Paul Bearer in that way was a really nice, like a really nice thing. And it was a nice segment. It wasn't anything exciting. It would have been obviously great with fans there. Probably actually a lot easier for Taker without fans there, Because I mean, having the crowd would have been huge for him.
It was a perfect promo. Like he said exactly what you should say. Like, it's time for me to rest in peace. Blah blah blah. I think he will get his moment with fans when it comes to the Hall of Fame. They have to get the 2020 class out of the way first, but Undertaker will undoubtedly headline the one after. And you'd imagine there'll be fans there by then, and whether it be actually at the Hall of Fame ceremony or the little bit they get at Mania the next night, he will get the rousing kind of fan engagement that he deserves. And like we said, it's not going to be the last time he's actually in front of fans. He will make an appearance. The man's tied in for 15 years. Like, he's going to be around. So I think, let's quickly pivot to this super chat from Matty. We have two in the chamber here. Match of the night was Drew and Roman by a mile. I hated the Lana finish. Paul Bearer spot was so nice. Hashtag thank you, Taker. PS, impressions will be back. I've got a good one. Oh, he's
gone Paul Bearer and impressions in the same sentence is worrying me. Are we going to have to do a Paul Bearer one?
I mean, listen, he's left us hanging for a little bit, so we'll have to see. The Zornice, another good egg. Welcome to the show, my friend. I know you're a regular watcher. Hi, Louis. I did send you a message via Twitter with all the good eggs. Hope you like it. As for the show, it had its moments, but it left a bad taste in my mouth. Love you guys. We love you too, my friend. I can see the bad taste in your mouth. But for me, I saw a lot of people crapping on Survivor Series on Twitter. I say a few. And I didn't really understand it. I came away from the show feeling much more of the highs than the lows.
Yeah, it was. There was some nonsensical stuff. There was some stuff that I really liked. But yeah, it was an overall good show. Like, probably the weakest that WWE's done recently. Oh.
It's not going to be Paul Bearer, apparently.
Oh, okay.
I do think that since WWE have been in the Thunderdome, they've knocked it out of the park, and I don't think they maybe get enough credit for the pay-per-views they've put on in there.
100% agreed. It was, the weakest of the Thunderdome era, but that's also because the bar is really high. But yeah, it was a decent show. But something, and it's in the title, so I do want to talk about it before we get onto your Young Bucks bit, was Edge being backstage.
Yeah.
He had a great feud with Undertaker. So when it was reported, I was like, okay, potentially he's going to come out and do that thing. Probably wouldn't have his return that way, but whatever. Jeff Hardy was there, so it's not like they were just keeping it for old timers. Like, Jeff Hardy felt a bit out of place there, but
hey now, you read my article. You know the importance of that ladder match. And when Michael Cole started talking about it yesterday, I was like, come on, Michael, direct them.
What did you expect him to say? Old Alex McCarthy from Talk Sport. Yeah. But no,
hang on. Was that your Michael Cole?
That was my generic American.
Old Alex McCarthy from Talk Sport. Is that
my
Michael Cole?
Is when they come to you remember when Wayne Rooney was on Raw that week?
Yeah.
He's from the Manchester United.
The Manchester United Kickers. No, no, it was just one of them. Like, I thought it was fitting because I was, like I said, I'd really gone back and forth on what to ask the Undertaker because it's very hard. I love that the match that I had celebrated was also celebrated on the night, so I thought that was cool.
Yeah, no, it was, and I liked it as well. I was just saying that to wind you up, but so Edge was backstage. I can't even think why. Is he gearing for a return? Is he?
Well, his timeline's probably not far off.
It was projected to be 8 months in June.
Right, so we're 7 months. We're nearly 7 months then. Nearly.
Yeah.
But I mean, they said that there had been setbacks and whatnot, but they were maybe Royal Rumble was going to be the one. For
I
him
think Rumble was more realistic. Like, literally, he's going to return at the Rumble again. Maybe even win it if Randy wins the title back. But
he was just there for Taker, man. It's very explainable.
Maybe, yeah, but there for Taker. But definitely interesting to hear. But then, would you not have them on screen, or would you not want to have the return that way?
I think you just said it. Yeah, like, do you blow the return that way? And then, but they must have plans afoot for him. Probably going to be Randy. So,
yeah, who knows? But yeah, Julia, while we're here, do you want to talk a little bit about what your chat with the Young Bucks was like? What they had to say? The second best tag team in the world.
Yeah, well, obviously we spoke to the Young Bucks because they have a new book coming out. I believe it's from the backyard wrestling to the big leagues, killing the business. And it was just cool to really get some insight from them into their process of actually writing a book and how they had to, go back and essentially they were talking about how Tony Khan really persuaded them to get to AEW, and he, picking them up in a limo from York Hall and taking them to Craven Cottage, all stuff that I never knew, but very, very interesting. We also got into the FTR, which, I basically addressed that their FTR hadn't been happy with the build, and Young Bucks kind of said, yeah, I mean, they didn't want it then. They wanted it in February, which is very interesting. The Young Bucks didn't want the match now. They thought they had more time. And as a result, they say the build got rushed. Okay, that's what they say. They're very happy with the outcome, and there probably will be another match down the line. But it is very interesting to think that things got pushed ahead, and you have to wonder why. Because the Young Bucks as well didn't really want to give this match away in front of 1,000 when they could have been 15, 20, right? That's the other thing that they thought maybe we hold off. So it was very interesting.
The issue is with that, though. I'm sorry to interrupt you, and I mean, this came back when WrestleMania, like the whole thing, people postpone it. And it's like, yeah, but you don't know when. Like, obviously, things are looking bright right now with the vaccine, but say they do delay it till February. Then what? Say they can't have fans there, and they're just going to keep delaying it until they can. I think it's so hard in this current climate to delay things until fans are there. I just don't think it's realistic. I think you do just have to persevere and act as you would normally.
Yeah. People are noting here, and quite rightly so, that I got an E in maths. June to November, 7 months. Actual maths, not strong too. Yeah, but I'm kind of thinking we're at the tail end of November. You know what I mean? We're near December.
The match was the tail end of June. I didn't want to say anything, but it was all
there we go. It's there you go. Then having said that, maybe Royal Rumble won't line up for him either. Who actually knows? So yeah, I mean, the Young Bucks, they were talking about a lot of great stuff like that. And when we were talking about how they were not in the PWI's top 10 tag teams, and they had some cool stuff to say about that as well. So that will drop tomorrow on TalkSport. And like I said, you'll be able to watch it on Inside the Ropes and listen to it you can listen to it right now if you go on TalkSport's app and listen back to Talk Wrestling. It's really good, about 26-minute chat. Before we finish up, Lou, I know we have an ultra chat that I want to get to, but let's just quickly talk about what we think Undertaker means to the wrestling business. A lot of people dilly-dally. Is he one of the all-time greats? Is he, maybe not that, but is he one of the greatest wrestlers of all time? Or is he one of the greatest characters? Like, where does he fit in the wrestling history, wrestling lore? I mean, in my eyes, he's the greatest character that's ever been properly realized, because for a guy of his size, and he's a great worker in his own right, and we've seen a whole host of amazing matches, but for the dead man, a supernatural character, really, in a time where the business wasn't completely from out behind the curtain, right? Where he's still kind of going, no, this, we're trying to convince people this is real. I felt like the way he thrived and developed and became the top attraction that he is, I think just speaks volumes to the wonderful, wonderful talent that he was. And he has to go down, in my opinion, as the greatest character. Greatest wrestler. I don't know if I'd have him on my Mount Rushmore.
He's the greatest of all time for me.
Well, all things considered, greatest of all time.
Greatest of all time. Like, I mean,
okay,
to have like he's been. The last few years have been difficult.
Well, I mean, that's what you have to kind of take into account, right? 30 years, sure, but
But I mean, who hasn't the last few years been difficult for? Like, I mean, who else? So in terms of who you'd put at the top of that list, I mean, you had Hogan come back and did stuff with TNA, wasn't great. Flair do stuff with TNA, wasn't great. You had Angle do stuff that last year with Baron Corbin, wasn't great. You had Bret Hart do that stuff with Vince McMahon.
That's really not Angle's fault.
Oh no, it's not their fault. But like, unfortunately, the world we live in now, people come back and ruin that perfect retirement. I mean, Shawn was close. Sean was close. Sean was so close.
I don't really count it. I just like to pretend it didn't happen. You can make the argument though that like Steve Austin went, that although he could have done so much more, he was only 38 when he went. But Steve Austin's got like the best legacy because he was just red hot and then gone.
Rock's up there as well. Like he's whatever he's done. Like he's got like, I mean, his last match was against Rowan, but that doesn't really that was a fun spot. Like he hasn't had a stinker, thankfully. Like, but I mean, in terms of greatest of all time, for me, it has to be Undertaker. Like the dedication to the character for so long, like living like I've literally I'm halfway through his Hot Ones episode. Which is just the weirdest thing to see Undertaker doing these interviews. But I'm sure it was even weirder for you to be sat on a call with him. But for me, he has to be the greatest of all time. Like his commitment to his character, the way he conducted himself backstage, the way he like really was that linchpin for WWE. And I know he hasn't been around for years in sort of a full-time capacity, but I probably think that Raw tonight is going to feel weird. It's going to feel like the end of an era. Like, and I mean, the build to WrestleMania, I think will too. Like, Vince is going to have to, for the first time in ever, not going to, all right, we've got a spot here. What's Taker doing? He's not going to have that. I mean, I'm sure the thought will go through his head. And a phone call will undoubtedly be made. But it's going to feel different, I think. I think it will. And I think that this man has had such a legacy on the business. When I was watching, before I even started watching wrestling, I knew who The Undertaker was. Mm-hmm. Like I would be able, like people would be like The Undertaker, or like if I tell someone what I do now, even to this day, they'll be like, oh, so the thing that The Undertaker does. Weirdly, also the thing that Nikki Bella does, I get quite a lot.
Must be your generation.
It is. I think it's that reality TV stuff.
I've met Nikki Bella, by the way, and she's a lovely person. Let me tell you that. I did an interview with her, and she was more than one of the loveliest people you can imagine.
Greatest of all time? No, but Undertaker for me, greatest of all time. Like he's up there. He's really up there. I think he would be top for me. I mean, seeing Vince get emotional was just it was weird. I went back. I watched it on stream, obviously with the five of us. So people were talking, and it was hard to get it all. So I went back and rewatched it, and it was weird, like surreal, to see everyone in that position. I felt weird, even like just this morning when you actually, it was even when you said it on call, when he was like, oh, like on here, when you were like, oh, and he said, oh, I've got to, now it's time for The Undertaker to rest in peace. Like, even when you just repeated those words, it kind of hit me. And it was like, oh, wow, like, he's done.
I mean, I've had such a, like I said, I've been along for pretty much the entire Undertaker ride, which is amazing to think. And I've never tired of him. I think he's always managed to stay relatively fresh. And I've just, The Undertaker, who first came along with Kane, amazing. Ministry of Darkness, amazing. Loved it when the Brothers of Destruction reigned in 2001, and then when he came back, and he was the Big Evil, in 2002, and then he came back to be the Dead Man in 2004, and we rolled on. Amazing period of time, and I think he's one of the most important people to WWE, if not the wrestling business ever. And he's the greatest character of all time. He has had like really amazing matches. Like I could give you a top 10 that would rival nearly anyone. And I think the streak is so important as well. But I just don't know if I consider him the best, the greatest. He's like in the convo. He deserves his place. Like at the very, very top bracket of people in the business. And in some categories, you'd consider him the most important. But for me, I'm not sure I would say he is like the greatest wrestler of all time. I think his profound impact, it almost transcends the ring. It's like behind the scenes, how WWE, like the foundations of that company, just like you said, being a character that can transcend generations and hit the mainstream. Like Undertaker is someone that everyone knows, as you said. So I feel like his legacy is firmly cemented, and whether he's the GOAT of all time, just in general or not, everyone is going to remember and celebrate the Undertaker, and that's something that you can't say for everyone. So, man, before we tie up here, we have one more Ultra Chat from Jeremy Bauman. Hey, man. Which 2 individual wrestlers do you want to see tag together to wrestle for the WWE Tag Team titles? I will take Keith Lee and Braun Strowman for Raw and Murphy and Black on SmackDown. I actually like your Murphy and Black shout because of the history, right, with the feud and the great matches they put together. Lee and Strowman, I mean, they would kick ass for sure. I mean, if you ask me who I'd like to see Drew and Sheamus make that story to then break them. And I'd like the same for Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn, because I can't believe they haven't been tag champions in WWE. So if I had to like stick my neck out and say, I think it would be them. But yeah, I love the tag teams that I love the most almost in WWE, the ones that you don't expect and they come along and kill it. Like Riddle and Pete Dunne was like the greatest thing on NXT TV for like 2 months, and it just came out of nowhere. So yeah, what do you reckon, Lou?
Matt Riddle and Keith Lee. I think that could be fun. I'd like to see them tag together. I think
Matt Riddle needs like a tag team like there's no tomorrow right now, because he can't just float on his own the way.
And I mean, those two would have insane chemistry. But again, I was distracted because I was just sent a link. Slice Wrestling is back.
Why? Who said this?
I've seen the account. They run a report today.
No, they didn't.
WWE's discussing Roman Reigns versus Drew McIntyre for WrestleMania.
Oh, of course they are, mate. What do you think? They're idiots. Like that's like. I'm not gonna bite to it. I'm gonna take them. I'm gonna take Slice Wrestling. I'm gonna put them in this box over here with Tom Collier and Brad Shepard and all the other pretenders. And I'm gonna shut that lid. And that is that, because
pew pew.
I refuse to entertain it. Anyway, that's it for the show tonight, guys. We've run out of time, but we do appreciate you joining us the night after Survivor Series.
Oh, we have one more chat, mate.
What? It's just sneaked in.
Yeah, we do have one more from a good egg as well. So
Bo Hill himself. All right, okay. We've been over this. The GOAT is Jericho. Undertaker is the GOAT character, but not GOAT wrestler. Everything together, and the best is Jericho. Mate, Jericho is right in that conversation, but you can make the argument he's never been as hot as the hottest guys. He's never been like in WWE for sure. He was never like the guy. Like, you know, we all really enjoyed him. And I love, like, please let me stress this enough. I love Jericho. One of my all-time favorites. Was he ever as hot as The Rock, Austin? Was he even ever on the Undertaker's level? You could argue not. And I love what he's doing for AEW though. And I do think going to Japan and AEW enhances his legacy tremendously that the others probably don't have on their CV. So you could definitely make the case for sure, Lou.
Yeah, no, I do agree. It's so difficult. I think this might be one I have to leave to you and SB3 at some stage later down the line. I don't want to pick a side, but no, I do think that it's so hard. Like it's I'll say something and then someone else will say another name that I'm like, oh yeah, them. So
yeah, very interesting. Like I said, there's so many variables and criteria to that is so hard to really dive into it and say what's what. You know, people will say what they drew, or ratings, or classic matches, or stories, angles. There are so many different things that you have to like put together. It's difficult, man. But Jericho, I think in anyone's logical brain, is in the conversation. That much we can agree on. Guys, Thank you so much for joining us tonight. Me and Louis will be back tomorrow at 8 p.m. And of course, you can catch us on all podcast platforms. If you want to catch up on any shows from last week or tonight, you can like, share, and subscribe to the Wrestling Daily right here on Wrestle2. Make sure you do. We're growing lovely right now. And of course, the tag team of Lou and I, we're not only back tomorrow, we'll be at Quizlemania on Wednesday as well. So make sure you stop by and support your guys. You've been great. Thank you very much. And we'll see you tomorrow.